morning, fellas.
Morning.
Yes, thank you, John. John's glad to be here.
Yeah, good to be back.
I'm glad to be here, Mike.
Good. I'm glad. All righty. Well, let's get started. We're in the Gospel of John. We're looking at what's called the last testimony, last witness of John the Baptist, not the writer, but John the Baptist. And what I'd like to do is spend most of the time this morning at table time, but I'd like to review what we talked about last week and then key in on what I think is a really great phrase and something for us to talk about at the tables. So could somebody read chapter 3, verses 22 through 30?
After this, Jesus and his disciples went out into the Judean countryside where he spent some time with them and baptized. Now John was also baptizing at Aenon near Salem, because there was plenty of water, and people were constantly coming to be baptized. This is before John was put in prison. An argument developed between some of John's disciples and a certain Jew over the matter of ceremonial washing. They came to John and said to him, "Rabbi, that man who was with you on the other side of Jordan, the one you testified about, well, he's baptizing and everyone's going to him." To this John replied, "The man can only receive what is given him from heaven. You yourselves can testify that I said, I am not the Christ, but am sent ahead of him. The bride belongs to the bridegroom. The friend who attends the bridegroom waits and listens for him and is full of joy when he hears the bridegroom's voice. That joy is mine and is not complete. He must become greater, I must become less."
Good. Thank you, Bill. All righty, let's dive into this. And again, we'll move here pretty quickly. This is all review. Last week we talked about that the context of where this is happening is that there are two concurrent ministries going on, one under the leadership of Jesus and one under the leadership of John the Baptist. M1, Ministry 1, M2, Ministry 2, doing the same things. They're baptizing, but yet they're two different, a little bit different. And this is the backdrop of what we'll be looking at in John's last words as far as his witness. So Ministry 1, the guys in Ministry 1 got into some level of argument over this subject of ceremonial washing, and somehow Ministry 2 was mentioned in this, and the guys in Ministry 1 come to the leader, John the Baptist, and say, "Hey, this is going on and everybody's going to Ministry 2. And so what they were looking at is a perceived loss. The situation they were saying, well, Ministry 2 is they are excelling, we're losing market share. So what this shows is that the backdrop here representing what we're calling jungle, just aspects of the jungle. And we're looking at the Gospel of John as Jesus is now in this jungle, and we're seeing how the jungle corresponds or responds to Jesus' presence. And one of those aspects, characteristics of the jungle that was true at that time and which is still true today, is this idea of constant comparison, this comparative thing. And this is an example here of comparison. So, we talked about that last week, and now I kind of focused and kind of just reduce this, and the idea that that's the backdrop of John's response in 27 through 30. And so John's response to this situation of losing market share in a ministry context is that, first of all, guys, everything is a gift, verse 27. And that's what John states. Everything is a gift. That's the framework of which he is operating on, is that everything is a gift. That is a great thing to think about. And then along with that is I think it's a parallel statement. Because he views everything as a gift, he can view, he has a clear role of his role to play. He said, guys, I made it very clear to you that I am not the Christ, but the one who is coming prior to the Christ to announce the Christ. And so he's very clear on his role and his boundaries. And then he states that there is great joy, verses 28 and 29. He loves his role. He is just fine with being the friend of the bridegroom. And remember, we talked about that cultural practice last time. So great joy in his response, and that then I think is a launch for clarity of vision for the future. He must increase, I must decrease, and that is the verse that I'd like for us guys at the table to talk about this morning. And so here's our table time question. Here's our text. Verse 30, he must increase, but I must decrease. That's the text. And the question to discuss around the tables this morning is, in what way, if any, does John's statement affect your own thinking about your own life at this stage of your life? So let's have some fun with this, and we got plenty of time this morning. We'll probably go about 20 minutes, and then I'll bring circle us back up, and we can we'll bring this to conclusion. So I'll leave this up on the board.